Simon shaded his eyes to scan the crowd. "Over there, below the gazebo." The men turned their steps toward their hostess. Duncan eyed the lavish refreshment tables with interest, but eating must wait upon manners. As they neared the gazebo, he heard a string quartet inside, playing music as light-hearted as the day. "It's hard to believe that the shadow of civil war lies over Britain," Duncan said softly. "That's why you're here," Simon said with equal softness. "And it's why I and others have spent so much time in Scotland. The future isn't fixed. If we Guardians build enough bridges between our nations, perhaps war can be averted." "Perhaps, but the Scots and the English have been fighting for centuries, and such bloody habits are not easily broken." Duncan gave his friend a slanting glance. "The first time you and I met, we did our best to beat each other unconscious. Yes, but that wasn't based on the fact that you were a barbarian Scot," Simon said promptly. "I hated you because you were brought to the nursery during my lessons, and immediately proved that your Greek was better than mine." Duncan smiled wryly as he remembered that first encounter. "I suppose that's better than hating each other for our nationalities." The group they were approaching included half a dozen men and women, with the rounded figure and silver hair of Lady Bethany Fox in the centre. Though past her 70th year, she had the posture and fine bones that had made her an acclaimed beauty her entire life. She was a passionate gardener, a doting grandmother, and the most powerful sorceress in Britain. Lady Bethany laughed at something said by the woman at her side. Duncan shifted his gaze and stopped dead in his tracks, entranced by Lady Beth's companion. Tall and elegant, she wore a creamy gown of modest cut, yet her demure garb couldn't disguise a lushly curving figure designed to drive men mad. As if that wasn't alluring enough, her straw bonnet accented a classically featured face that sparkled with humour and intelligence. This was a dangerous woman. "Dear God," he breathed as thunder cracked in the distance. "Helen of Troy." "I beg your pardon?" Following Duncan's gaze, Simon said, "Ah, Lady Brecon. A lovely lass, but launch 1,000 ships? I think not. 5 or 6 at the most. 10,000 ships? More. She's like an ancient enchantress whose glance could drive men to madness." Duncan gave thanks that Lady Brecon was unaware of his devouring gaze. In the full flower of her womanhood, she was so compelling that he couldn't have looked away to save his life. "Lord Brecon's wife, you see. The Earl has good taste. She's not wife to the present Brecon, but widow to the old one. You were on the continent when they married, but it was something of a scandal since she was only 17 and Brecon was over 70. She seemed rather a plain girl at the time." "Plain?" Duncan watched as the lady turned her attention to a languid young fop in gold brocade. The pure curve of her throat mesmerized him, and that luminous skin begged to be caressed. "Her?" "She blossomed during the marriage. A wealthy husband often has that effect. But she and Brecon seemed most sincerely devoted." Trust Simon to know all the gossip. Absurdly grateful to learn she was a widow, Duncan tried to remember when the 5th Lord Brecon had died. A little over a year ago, he thought. She must have legions of suitors now that she's out of mourning. She has many admirers, me among them, but I've never seen her favour any in particular. Simon cocked one brow. "I haven't seen you like this since we went to the Gypsy Horse Fair and you spotted that grey hunter." His friend was right. Duncan had been 16 when he saw that horse, and his reaction was the same as today when he saw Lady Brecon. He had to have her. He drew a slow breath, reminding himself that he wasn't 16 anymore. The lady might be a shrew, or she might find him as alarming as most women did. One might purchase a desirable horse, but women were more difficult. If she was Brecken's wife, she must be a guardian. Yes, one of the Owenses. She has no power to speak of, but she grew up in the library at Harlow and is a notable scholar of guardian law. Since her husband died, she lives here in Richmond with Lady Beth.